Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It is lovely seeing you here again. Today we'll talk about why Sigma females are the ultimate bad girl, good girl paradox. The woman who can be soft without being weak, powerful without being cruel, and independent without being cold. Let's get into it. The woman who does not fit the box. Have you ever met a woman who somehow seems to be everything at once? She can walk into a room and command attention without saying a word. She can be incredibly kind, but she is not easy to manipulate. She can be feminine, warm, and be affectionate. But the moment someone crosses a boundary, she knows exactly when to walk away. She does not need to be the loudest woman in the room. She does not need everyone to like her. And strangely enough, that may be exactly why people notice her. This is the woman often described online as the Sigma female. Now, before we go any further, let's clarify something. Sigma female isn't a scientific personality diagnosis. It's an internet personality archetype, a way of describing a woman who tends to be highly independent, self-directed, selective, and comfortable operating outside traditional social hierarchies. And what makes this archetype fascinating is the contradiction. She's the bad girl, good girl paradox. Not because she's pretending to be the two different people, but because she understands something most people spend years learning. You don't have to choose between being a good woman and being a strong woman. You can be kind without being a pushover. You can be independent without being emotionally unavailable. You can be feminine without being submissive. You can have standards without thinking you're better than everyone else. And you can have a little edge without becoming cruel. So today, we're going deep. We're going to talk about why this paradox is so powerful, why Sigma type women often confuse people, why some people find them intimidating, why others become fascinated by them, and most importantly, why the woman who learns to balance softness and strength becomes incredibly difficult to control. Now, let's go to part one, the good girl side. Let's start with the side people often underestimate, the good girl side. She's considerate, she knows how to treat people, she values loyalty, she can listen, she remembers all details. She might be the woman checking on her friends when everyone else has gone home. She might be incredibly protective of the people she loves. She does not need to humiliate other women to feel beautiful. She does not need to tear somebody down to feel powerful. And here's the interesting part. Her kindness is usually a choice, not a weakness. That's a major distinction. A woman is kind because she's afraid to say no, is operating from fear. A woman who is kind because she has the emotional freedom to choose kindness is operating from strength. Think about that. If you are only nice because you're afraid people won't like you, that's not really kindness. That's people pleasing. But if you can say, I could destroy this person with my words, but I do not need to, that's different. That's emotional control. The Sigma archetype represents the woman who does not need to prove that she has power. She already knows she has it. Part 2. Then comes the bad girl. Now, let's flip the script because this woman also has an edge. And this is where the paradox becomes interesting. She might be sweet, but she isn't naive. She might forgive, but she remembers patterns. She might love deeply, but she knows when love isn't enough. She might give someone a second chance, but she does not give unlimited access. That's the bad girl side. And by bad girl, we're not talking about recklessness, disrespectful, or toxic, not at all. We're talking about a woman who refuses to live according to everyone else's expectation. She's willing to say no. She's willing to disappoint people. She's willing to leave. She's willing to start over. She's willing to be misunderstood. And sometimes she's willing to be disliked. That last one is huge because most people don't realize how much of their behavior is controlled by the desire to be liked. Think about it. How many decisions do people make because they are worried about what someone else will think? What will my friends say? What will my family think? What if he doesn't like me anymore? What if people think I'm difficult? What if they call me arrogant? The Sigma woman eventually reaches a point where she says, I'm not going to destroy my peace just to protect someone else's opinion of me. And that's when she becomes dangerous to manipulation. Part 3. She does not need to be the center of attention. Here's one of the biggest differences. Some people walk into a room thinking, how can I make everyone notice me? The Sigma type woman walks into a room thinking, why do I need everyone to notice me? That's a completely different mindset. She does not necessarily hate attention, she just doesn't depend on it. And there's something psychologically interesting about that. When someone isn't desperately seeking validation, their behavior can appear more confident. They don't constantly check whether people approve. They don't need to dominate conversations. They don't need to perform personality. They can simply exist. And sometimes that quiet confidence gets more attention than trying to get attention ever could. You know that woman. She walks into the restaurant. She doesn't scan the room to see who's watching. She sits down. She talks to whoever she's with. She laughs. She enjoys herself, and somehow people notice her. Why is that? Because genuine self-possession is rare. Part 4. The Sigma female does not chase. Now, let's talk about relationships. This is where the Sigma archetype gets especially interesting. The Sigma woman doesn't necessarily reject relationships. She rejects desperation. There's a difference. She can want someone without needing them. She can fall in love without losing herself. She can miss someone without running after them. She can care deeply without abandoning her standards. And that's a powerful distinction because love should add to your life. It shouldn't require you to abandon yourself. Imagine two women. Woman A says, if he leaves me, my entire life is over. But woman B says, I would be heartbroken if he left, but I would eventually be okay, which is perfect. Which woman has more emotional independence? The second woman. And that doesn't mean she loves less. Sometimes she loves more because her love isn't based on fear. She's choosing the relationship. She's not desperately clinging to it. Part 5. Why people sometimes find her intimidating. Now, let's get into something controversial. Why do some people think independent women are intimidating? Because independence removes certain forms of control. If someone depends entirely on your approval, you can influence them through approval. If someone fears being alone, you can influence them through the threat of leaving. If someone desperately needs validation, you can influence them through criticism or praise. But when someone says, I like you, but I don't need you to survive, the dynamic changes. And that's why a confident woman can sometimes make insecure people uncomfortable. Not because she's doing anything wrong, but because she isn't easily controlled. And there's another reason. She does not reveal everything immediately. She's selective. She observes. She listens. She watches how people behave. And because she's not constantly talking about herself, people sometimes becomes curious. What's she thinking? Why isn't she reacting? Does she like me? Why doesn't she care? Sometimes mystery isn't created intentionally. It's simply the result of oversharing, of not oversharing. Part 6. She can be soft without being weak. This is probably my favorite part of the entire conversation because modern conversations about female strength sometimes make it sound as though being strong means becoming hard, and it's not that. Strength doesn't require emotional numbness. A woman can cry and still be strong. She can love deeply and still have boundaries. She can enjoy romance and still be independent. She can be gentle and still say no. She can wear feminine clothes and still be ambitious. She can enjoy being cared for and still know how to take care of herself. That's the paradox. Softness and strength are not opposites. In fact, sometimes the strongest people are incredibly gentle because they don't need aggression to feel powerful. They don't need intimidation. They don't need to prove themselves every 5 minutes. Strength is their internal thing. Part 7, her bad girl side, is really about boundaries. Let's redefine the bad girl. The bad girl isn't the woman who treats people badly. She's the woman who refuses to treat herself badly. Think about that. She stops entertaining disrespect. She stops explaining obvious boundaries. She stops begging people to understand her worth. She stops negotiating with people who repeatedly hurt her. And she learns something incredibly important. Access to her is a privilege, not an entitlement. That doesn't mean she thinks she's superior. It means relationships have standards. If you constantly disrespect someone's time, eventually they stop giving you their time. If you repeatedly break someone's trust, eventually they stop trusting you. If you consistently bring chaos, eventually someone chooses peace. That's not punishment, that's consequence. Part 8, she doesn't need revenge. Here's another interesting characteristic. The mature version of this archetype doesn't obsess over revenge. She does not need to prove that someone lost the best woman they ever had. She does not need to post cryptic message. She does not need to show off a new relationship. She does not need to make somebody jealous. Why? Because she's already moved on. And moving on quietly can be incredibly powerful. Imagine somebody hurts you. Your first instinct might be, I'm going to make sure they regret it. But the stronger mindset is, I'm going to make sure this experience doesn't destroy me. That's different. One is about them, the other is about you. And the Sigma archetype is ultimately about self-direction. Part 9. She observes more than she speaks. Now, let's talk about one of the most misunderstood traits, silence. A Sigma type woman may not respond immediately. She may listen. She may watch. She may take time before deciding how she feels. Some people interpret this as coldness. But sometimes silence is simply processing. Think about how powerful observation can be. When you're constantly talking, you're constantly revealing. When you're constantly reacting, you're constantly showing people what triggers you. But when you pause, you get information. You notice inconsistencies. You notice how someone treats waiters. You notice how someone talks about their ex. You notice how they behave when they're angry. You notice whether their actions match their words. And that's where wisdom comes from. Not from listening to what people say, from watching what they repeatedly do. Part 10. She does not compete with every woman. This is another major difference. A woman who knows herself doesn't need to compete with every woman. Someone is prettier, okay. Someone is richer, oh well. Someone has a bigger house, okay. Someone has more followers, all right. Her response is good for her, because another woman's success doesn't reduce yours. This is what happens when your identity isn't based entirely on comparison. You stop asking, am I better than her? And start asking, am I becoming better than I was yesterday? That's a much healthier competition. And ironically, it's often the woman who isn't trying to compete who ends up being admired. Part 11. She can be romantic and still be independent. Let's destroy another myth. Being independent does not mean you don't want love. A Sigma type woman can absolutely want romance. She can want flowers. She can want dates, affection, someone to hold her, partnership. She can want commitment. She can want to build a family. Independent doesn't mean I don't need anybody. It means I want partnership, not dependency. That's a beautiful distinction. She does not want someone to rescue her from life. She wants someone who can walk beside her through life. She isn't looking for somebody to compete her or to complete her. She's looking for somebody who complements her. Part 12. She knows when to walk away. This may be the hardest lesson. Sometimes strength isn't fighting. Strength is living. Living a friendship, living a relationship, living a toxic environment, an opportunity that doesn't align with your values, an old version of yourself. And here's what makes living difficult. You may still love the person. You may still care, still remember the good moments, still wish things could have been different. But you can acknowledge all that and still say, this isn't healthy for me anymore. That's emotional maturity. You don't need to hate somebody to love them. Sometimes you simply recognize that your paths are no longer compatible. Part 13. The paradox, she is both mysterious and warm. This is where bad girl, good girl paradox really comes together. She's mysterious, but she can be warm. She's independent, but she can be affectionate. She's confident, but she can be humble. She's ambitious, but she can be playful. She's selective, but she can be deeply loyal. She's strong, but she can be vulnerable. She's difficult to manipulate, but easily to love when you genuinely respect her. And that's why this personality archetype is so fascinating, because she isn't one-dimensional. She's not trying to fit into the traditional box of good woman, bad woman, nice woman, strong woman, soft woman, independent woman. She's saying, why can't I be all of these things? Exactly. Who said strength has to look masculine? Who said femininity has to look submissive? Kindness means accepting disrespect? Not at all. Who said independence means loneliness? Those are false choices. Part 14. What makes her different in conflict? Let's imagine an argument. Someone is yelling, another person is insulting, the room is becoming chaotic. The mature response is, let me match their energy. Or the immature response is, let me match their energy. The mature Sigma response is, let me decide whether this conversation is worth my energy. That's a huge difference. Not every battle deserves participation. Sometimes the strongest response is, I understand that you are upset. We can talk when we're both calm. And then she walks away. Not because she's scared, because she refuses to let somebody else's emotional instability dictate her behavior. That's self-control. And self-control is one of the most underrated forms of power. Now we go to part 15. She doesn't confuse attention with love. Let's talk about dating, because attention can be addictive. Messages, likes, compliments, calls, people chasing you. It feels good. But attention isn't necessarily love. Someone can desire attention without respecting you. Someone can compliment your appearance without appreciating your character. Someone can pursue you without having good intentions. The Sigma type women learn to ask, how does this person make me feel? Do they respect my boundaries? Are they consistent? Do their action match their words? Can I trust them? Because chemistry is exciting, but consistency is revealing. And sometimes the person who gives you the biggest emotional rush isn't the person who gives you the healthiest relationship. Part 16. She does not need to explain every decision. Here's a small but powerful lesson. You don't need courtroom defense for every decision you make. Sometimes no is enough. I don't want to is enough. That does not work for me is very much enough. I'm not comfortable with that is enough. And if somebody keeps demanding an explanation, you can repeat yourself. You don't have to create 20-minute presentation explaining why your boundaries exist. A boundary is not a negotiation, it's information. Part 17. Her life doesn't revolve around romance. This is another reason she can seem different. Her identity isn't entirely tied to relationships. She has interests, goals, friends, work, hobbies, dreams, personal projects. She can spend a Saturday alone and still have a great day. She can travel alone, eat alone, go shopping alone, watch a movie alone, but something alone, build something alone. And that does not mean she doesn't enjoy companionship. No. It means she doesn't fear her own company. And that is one of the greatest forms of freedom, because when you are comfortable alone, you become much more selective about who you allow into your life. Part 18. The dark side of the Sigma archetype. Now, let's be honest. There is a downside. Any personality trait can become unhealthy when taken too far. Independence can become isolation. Confidence can become arrogance. Boundaries can become walls. Privacy can become emotional avoidance. Self-protection can become distrust. Not needing people can become refusing intimacy. And this is important. The goal isn't to become a woman who says, I don't need anybody. The goal is to become a woman who says, I can stand on my own, but I also know how to build healthy connections. That's maturity, because humans need relationships, friendship, community, love, connection. The strongest version of the Sigma archetype isn't lonely. She's selective. There's a difference. Part 19. The real power is self-knowledge. At the end of the day, this isn't really about being Sigma. It's about knowing yourself, knowing what you value, knowing what you won't tolerate, knowing what you're good at, where you need to grow, your emotional triggers, your strength, your weaknesses, and being honest about all of it, because confidence isn't perfection. Confidence is I know who I am and I'm willing to keep growing. That's real confidence. Part 20. How to become the healthy version of this woman. So how do you actually embody this energy? Let's make it practical. Number 1, learn to enjoy your own company. Don't always run towards noise. Spend time alone, think, read, walk, create, reflect. Learn what you actually like when nobody's influencing you. Number 2, stop over-explaining. You don't need everyone to understand your decisions. Number 3, build competence. Confidence grows when you become capable. Learn skills, manage your money, take care of your responsibilities, develop your career, become someone you can rely on. Number 4, protect your peace. Not everything deserves your reaction. Number 5, stay kind. This is important. Don't confuse being powerful with being cruel. You can have boundaries without becoming bitter. Number 6, stop chasing validation. Compliments are nice, but don't build your identity around them. Number 7, have standards. Know what kind of relationships you want. Know what behavior you will and won't allow. Number 8, remain emotionally open. Strength isn't pretending you don't care. It's caring without losing yourself. Final section, the woman who does not have to choose. And maybe that's the real reason the Sigma female archetype fascinates people. It's not because she's perfect, it's because she represents a woman who refuses to choose between two identities. She does not have to be the innocent girl. She does not have to be the rebellious bad girl. She can be both. She can have standards and comparison, confidence and humility, softness and strength, independence and intimacy, mystery and warmth, ambition and femininity. She can walk away from disrespect and still have a beautiful heart. She can love deeply without losing herself. She can be gentle without becoming weak. She can be powerful without becoming cruel. And perhaps the greatest person is this: your strength doesn't have to destroy your softness. Protect your softness. Strengthen your boundaries. Build your independence. Keep your kindness. And don't become cold simply because the world taught you that being vulnerable is dangerous. Because the goal isn't to become untouchable. The goal is to become secure enough to choose who gets close. And that's the real paradox. The woman who looks like she needs somebody may actually be the woman who understands relationships the best, because she isn't choosing people from desperation. She's choosing them from freedom. She does not ask, who will complete me? She asks, who deserve a place in the life I've built? And that question changes everything. So if you are a woman who's been told you are too independent, too quiet, too selective, too difficult, too ambitious, too confident, maybe take a moment before accepting that label. Ask yourself, am I actually difficult? Or have I simply stopped accepting one once hurt me? Am I cold? Or have I finally learned boundaries? Am I arrogant? Or have I stopped shrinking myself to make other people comfortable? Am I alone? Or am I simply waiting for relationships that actually deserve my energy? Because there is a difference. And once you understand the difference, you stop trying to become someone else's definition of a good woman. You become your own definition. And maybe that's the ultimate bad girl, good girl paradox. She isn't good because she's obedient. She isn't bad because she's independent. She's simply a woman who knows herself. And a woman who truly knows herself is very difficult to manipulate, very difficult to replace, very difficult to break, and incredibly difficult to forget. So here's a question I want you to live with. Ask yourself, becoming the woman you were always meant to be, start with choosing yourself. Have you chosen yourself yet? If this conversation spoken to you, don't just watch it and move on. Take one idea from this video and apply it to your life today. Set one boundary. And if you are a Sigma female already, you resonate with a lot of things that has been said here, please comment down below. See you next time. Bye.